It was the year 1970. For her birthday, Deidre Bernard received what seemed like a harmless, fun present. A Raggedy Ann doll. A simple toy meant to bring comfort, a gift, or a curse. The next morning, Deidre placed the doll on her bed, its arms and legs stretched out. But when she returned that night, it had moved. At first, it was subtle. One day, its legs were crossed. Another time, its arms were resting in its lap. But soon, the changes became more sinister. One evening, Deidre came home and found the doll's arms pointing straight at her, as if it was gesturing, beckoning. Then it got worse. The doll no longer stayed where she left it. It moved on its own. From room to room, it appeared in different places, sitting, waiting, watching. One night, Deidre returned home with her roommate Lara Clifton and her fiancé Cal Randell. As they opened the door, they froze. The doll was kneeling in a chair, staring at them. But Raggedy Ann dolls can't kneel. They tried to make it do so again, but each time it flopped over, as if some unseen force had been holding it in place. Then the notes appeared. Small pieces of parchment paper scattered around the apartment. The messages read, "Help us. Help call." But who was writing them? No one owned parchment paper. No one had pencils. Then came the blood. One day they returned home to find the back of the doll's hands stained in blood. 3 dark spots of crimson bled through its chest. Terrified, they reached out to a psychic medium. Through whispers from beyond, she claimed that the doll was possessed by the spirit of a little girl named Annabelle Higgins, a lonely child who once played in the fields where the apartments now stood. She begged to stay. She wanted to live in the doll, to be with them, to be loved. Deidre and Lara said yes. That was their mistake. The doll was no longer just a toy, it was Annabelle, and she wasn't a little girl. Cal felt it first. Darkness surrounded him. Nightmares, unshakable dread. And then, one night, he woke up, and Annabelle was on him. The doll hovered over his body. Its cold hands gripped his throat. Its black eyes bore into his soul. It was choking him. He couldn't breathe. He couldn't push it away. It was as if he was trapped beneath a crushing weight. With one final desperate shove, he freed himself, but Annabelle wasn't finished. One night, Cal and Lara were home alone. A strange shuffling noise came from Deidre's room. Cal went to investigate. The room was empty, except for Annabelle. The doll lay crumpled in the corner. Cal took a step forward and collapsed. A searing pain ripped across his chest. He gasped, clutching his shirt as it drenched in blood. When Lara ran in, she screamed. 7 deep claw marks tore across Cal's chest, like something had attacked him. They knew now this was no child spirit. This was something else, something evil. Desperate for help, they turned to their local priest, who reached out to the famed paranormal investigators, Ed and Lorraine Warren. When the Warrens arrived, they didn't hesitate. "This isn't a ghost," Lorraine said. "This is an inhuman demonic spirit." There was never an Annabelle Higgins. They had been tricked. By agreeing to let the spirit into the doll, Deidre and Lara had invited it into their lives, and now it wanted their souls. If they had waited any longer, it would have killed them all. A priest performed an exorcism on the apartment. Annabelle was finally removed, but she wasn't destroyed. The Warrens took her. They placed her in the back seat of their car, and as they drove home, the nightmare wasn't over. The engine stalled, the brakes failed, something was in the car with them. The third time the car almost crashed, Ed had enough. He grabbed a vial of holy water and splashed it on Annabelle. The disturbances stopped, but even at their home, the horrors continued. Annabelle levitated. She moved on her own. One night, Lorraine heard a deep, guttural growl that shook the house. One priest, skeptical of Annabelle's power, laughed as he picked her up and said, "You're just a rag doll. You can't hurt anyone." Ed warned him, "Don't say that." On his way home, his brakes failed. His car was found, totaled. He barely survived. Annabelle was too dangerous to be left free. The Warrens built a special glass case, locking her inside. A sign was placed on the front, "Positively do not open." Even now, she remains inside the Warrens Occult Museum. But her curse isn't over. Some who have mocked Annabelle have met horrible fates. She still waits, watches, and wants to play. Will you be next?